Hi you guys, my name is Lindsey Wawrzyniak. I am 23 years old if you do not know me, currently living in Tempe, Arizona. I'm very excited because tomorrow I am doing a professional photo shoot and video interview with David, also known as Shark Cookie on Instagram. He is very well known, amazing person. I did a photo shoot with him years ago. I cannot wait to do it this time now that I'm happy and healthy. We're gonna share my story. I'm really looking forward to it and hopefully helping other dancers, other people that may struggle with the same things that I did. So definitely stay tuned. I'm going to video as much as I can, upload as much footage as I can, but definitely looking forward to it. Good morning, it is shoot day. I woke up sick, if you cannot tell. So yeah, that is the situation. We're probably gonna do the photo shoot today and then the videos on Saturday. Okay, I was gonna record me doing my makeup, but I'm already moving like way slower than I need to. So I'll record me doing my hair. Done curling, but I wanted to come on and make a little video because last time I did a photo shoot I was really sick and I actually went into treatment. Did you see that? I pretty much went into treatment like right after, so it really is humbling and it means a lot to me that we're doing another shoot now that I'm healthy. David works with a lot of younger dancers and it's just so common in this community, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Very cool. We're recording video. Hi! I'm trying to figure out the camera. This is how I got my camera.
The blooper, yeah.
Unboxing and then this.
Okay. Wait, okay, are we recording?
You're still recording, you know that, right? You have to turn it off and then you can... Yes, here we go. Wait, no, it's... Okay, I don't know how to do this. Okay. Just press any button.
That one. Hello, it is a new day. I am still sick, but we need to do the video shoot because I, 1, paid for it, 2, really want to do it. So hopefully my voice doesn't sound too bad, but we are still going to do it. So I am here now and just waiting for David to come and we're gonna get this show on the road.
Wide shot like this,
okay.
You see?
Yep.
And if you're talking, I'm going to this one here, which I'm setting up now.
Okay.
So it's nice to meet you again after such a long time.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.
So we did our photo shoot, yesterday, the day before yesterday. Our second photo shoot,
Our second photo shoot,
Right, right.
Yeah.
And we did our first one. Do you remember what it was? Like what year or time?
2019.
2019.
It was, I think, March.
Okay.
Spring of 2019.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's been a while.
4 years, yeah.
Yes.
Crazy.
What happened in all these 4 years?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot, yes.
Where do you want me to begin?
How about this? How about we'll show the audience some of the photos before. Is that a good way to start?
I think so.
I think right after the photo shoot, very closely after the photo shoot, something dramatically happened.
Yeah, it was actually a big pivotal moment in my life. I got a couple of messages from a few young dancers and they were asking me about my diet and exercise routine because they thought I looked really good in the photos.
And I began to write it out for them. I wrote out what I ate in a day and what I did for my exercise. And after that, I really broke down. And
Why?
well, I saw what I was doing to my body and to myself, and I knew it wasn't healthy. And I would never want any younger dancer to go through what I had gone through. And in that moment, I remember I deleted everything that I had written down, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm actually going to get some help because I am really struggling. And in that moment, it was heartbreaking, but I was really proud of myself that I was able to tell those girls the truth and just be my authentic self. So after that, I went to my dance team nationals, and that's where I hit my rock bottom, and I did go into treatment to get some help and to recover.
I remember at the shoot, I mean, I was impressed the way you looked.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me, there's these anatomical drawings of humans,
Yeah.
you know, without skin, where you just see the muscles. That's how you look.
Yeah.
And I remember asking
Yeah.
you, how do you do that? I'm like, do you have a personal trainer? And I remember you said, yeah, I have two.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it was really, that was like my entire world. I really didn't hang out with friends anymore, and it started in high school. I actually quit my dance team where a lot of my friends were, and I moved schools because I just was so focused on the way that I looked, and all of the praise, obviously, and the external validation didn't help me, but I just kept going until I realized I wasn't living according to who I wanted to be.
So the external validation that you got, I mean, everybody was complimenting you, but you say that didn't help you. That wasn't giving you any satisfaction, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is on the outside, everyone thought I looked really good, and at the time I even thought that I looked good, but on the inside I was really dying inside, and I knew that. I just didn't really know how to express it.
How did you get to this point? Because we're basically starting in the middle of your story. So like maybe start a little bit like earlier. How did you get into that? Like where did you start?
So when I was 2 years old, I started dancing. I always had a really healthy relationship with my body. I had a really supportive family and a really healthy relationship with food, to be honest. And then the age of 16, I signed with a talent agency. I started traveling all the time, doing a lot of dancing. And I remember in that moment just caring more about the way that I looked. I thought, if I was thinner, if I had the quote-unquote dancer's body, then I would be better, and I would get more awards, I would be praised more, which unfortunately did happen for a bit. And so, yeah, at the age of 16, I just remember starting to diet, not thinking it was a bad thing. And when I kept cutting out certain food groups, I became really undernourished. That's when I just noticed a lot of weight loss happening. I lost a lot of my stamina and strength when I was dancing. And like I mentioned before, I quit my high school dance team. I just couldn't keep up with all of it.
So when you say you cut it out and you worked out and all of that, so even though you looked amazingly fit, you really weren't, right?
Yeah, I really wasn't. My organs were dying, like everything was just starting to shut down in my body, and the doctor told me they weren't sure if I was going to make it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I did a little bit of reading on being underweight and overweight. Being a little overweight is way less dangerous than being underweight. Underweight is very dangerous because the body has no way to kind of overcome any kind of trouble, or like there's no fuel to get to, like no reserve.
It's really challenging in the dance community, especially. I think it's just on social media too, to look a certain way, and like you mentioned, it's very unhealthy to be underweight and for your body to not be properly functioning. Our bodies are instruments, and I think that's so important to remember.
Do you think so? Were you a lot on social media when you before you were 16, leading up to that?
Yeah, I had 2 Instagram accounts. So I had my personal and then I had my dance account. So I was always on social media. And as I mentioned before, that praise just kept driving those behaviors. I would go on Instagram and I would get that rush of excitement. I think I had to take a lot of breaks in my recovery from social media just so I could do what I know I needed to do for me and not worry about what anybody else thought.
I remember you messaged me shortly after the shoot and said, hey, I'm going to therapy. I don't remember exactly what you said, but I said, like, I'm going to therapy or something. I won't have my phone, like they don't allow to have an phone. So they knew that the social media pressure was part of the problem.
Yeah, they did. That was one of the first things that happened. I was pretty much cut off all contact from my phone. It was really challenging, but I did find so much growth in that time. I found my true identity in who I was, not by what others thought of me or by the praise or validation I was receiving. It was more of who I truly was.
When you look through social media, do you see some people, accounts where like, I think they're on the same path that I was?
I do, and interestingly, sometimes they will reach out to me and tell me I need advice or ask me for advice, and I'm more than happy to give anybody advice. But I do see that a lot, unfortunately, and for me, it took a couple of years to figure out what was going on, so I think that catching it early is the most important thing, and just knowing what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's part of why we're doing this, that people, you went through the whole, like, down the hill and then recovered. And I mean, look at you now. You're just so much happier.
Yeah, so much happier.
Because, like, you know, I gave you the photos. I sent you the photos from back then again. And then I remember you sent me, like, you sent me 2 photos, one from that back then and then one from now. And, like, look at my eyes. Like, I wasn't happy, and look at me now. It's like it's a night and day. And I can totally tell.
Yeah. I remember my mom saying a lot that when she looked me in the eyes, she just didn't really see anything. She said that I lost my spark. And I remember feeling that too. I didn't really laugh anymore. I didn't find joy in things that I used to. And so looking at myself today now, and even our shoot, how much we were laughing.
Totally.
We had such a good time, and it's so good to just feel free and happy, and I want that for everyone.
Yeah.
I want people to feel free and joy and all of that when they're dancing, especially. Sometimes it can be really demanding, but to find those moments of happiness.
I'm struggling a little bit with the other side. I'm a little too big. So, well, but I think everybody has their struggles, right, with weight and goes through phases of, and I think the key is to find the right balance, because, like, if I eat less and cut out certain food groups, like Skittles and ice cream, all right, I feel stronger, better, I sleep better, everything is better, right? But there is the point where when you do that too much, it tips over and it goes bad, right? And so, was that the therapy that rebalanced you? Like, how do you find that balance again?
Yeah, that's a great question. I, first of all, had to accept my circumstance, that it was unlike a lot of people. So with eating disorders, a lot of times there's fear foods and foods that you're actually scared of. For me, a lot of them were like desserts and pizza and stuff like that. So I had to continue to eat those foods so I wouldn't be scared of them. Seriously.
You know, what you just said is actually a very good point, and I think it's worth kind of like emphasizing. The first step is to admit, hey, there is a problem. Because if you don't admit there's a problem, nobody can help you, right? So, yeah. Fear food, that's an interesting thing. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That you're scared of a food type or whatever.
It's mostly driven by fear of gaining weight.
Yeah.
It's just, and even diet culture, people saying this food's bad, this food's good, and then internalizing it is where it becomes an issue. So if I had something I thought was bad, then I thought that I was a bad person. And it's very common.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good thing, because I think most people don't understand that, you know, that you feel bad as a person for eating.
It's placing, like our bodies, the way we look, and all of that on a pedestal, and making that the most important center of our life. And I think in dance, because we focus so much on the body, the way that we move, sometimes we forget about the true passion and why we dance. And that's where I really had to come back come back to start dancing again.
So you're dancing again. You had to obviously stop for a while you're in therapy and everything, but then it's been 4 years now.
Yeah.
So what was your journey in those 4 years?
Definitely a lot of trial and error is how I explain it. I took about 7 months off of all movement. And then I started stretching again because I wanted to fully focus on my recovery. So then I started stretching. I did that for a little bit. When I felt ready, I started doing some Pilates, and it's called Pure Barre, but I started doing Pilates and a little bit of exercise to gain my strength back. And now I'm finally back dancing, and I've been dancing for a bit now. It feels so great, and just to, like I said, rediscover that passion when I was a child and not caring about the way that I look, but just loving it for what it is.
Well, you look good. So
Thank you.
So it's not like you look bad. You don't have to worry about it.
Thank you.
You look good. Right after our shoot, you said, "Hey, I'm going to go to therapy. Don't have my phone for a while." And instantly I thought, oh, dang, okay. And I think I asked you, like, hey, do you want me to delete the photos? And you said, no. I still like them. I think they're still good, right? Mm. Which, to me, was actually surprising. Because, so you had to accept that there was a problem, right? And that wasn't healthy, right? But you also didn't demonize your past.
When I went into recovery, I knew how big of an issue this was, and there's not a lot of advocates in the community that stand up for dancers that are going through something like this, and I knew that I wanted to be a role model one day, and I knew that just those pictures would really show how far that I've come. And like we mentioned in the beginning, just looking back, and it does make me sad, but again, I feel really proud that I chose recovery and chose to make it to where I am today, and just to show that there's nothing wrong with, weight gain, or there's nothing wrong with your body changing. I think our bodies go through seasons, and like we were talking about, there's different seasons of change, and just accepting that is huge.
That's an interesting thing, because the fact that we didn't delete the photos, and you still think, hey, we can show them, because it's part of your whole journey. It's part of your whole history. You don't have to hate your. I think I said history. You don't have to hate your younger self for not knowing what you know now, right?
I loved that. That was something that really stood out. Like, I did what I could then. I thought, like I said, what I was doing was right. I had no idea that this would all happen until the point to where it did. But I did what I could.
I mean, you didn't damage yourself, or is there anything where you said, oh, that was permanent damage? Did you do something, or is it?
Luckily, thank God, no.
Okay, cool.
I am very blessed because like I said, we weren't sure if I was going to make it. It was very, very scary for me and my family. We had a hard time getting me on a plane to fly back to Michigan to go in the hospital.
Wow.
So
even the plane ride was difficult? It
was difficult because of my heart and the height. It was really challenging, the elevation. Yeah.
That is so interesting to me, that someone can look like a superhero, but actually be very weak and vulnerable, and it's not healthy, right? Because it's a totally different image that the fitness industry tells you, like, if you're lean and have muscles, you're the strongest that you can be, but that is not always true.
It's not, and that's a scary thing, is that no one really sees it. That's the tricky thing about eating disorders, or even mental health in general. No one really sees what's going on in the inside. Mm-hmm. And once I finally just came out and said I needed help is when my life changed.
That moment, I need help. Well, was that the girls had sent you, like, hey, I want to be like you, and you said. But here's the thing, and I still don't understand it 100%. So you were doing that to yourself, right? And that was okay. But doing that to someone else, or them doing that to them, was not okay. So where does that disconnect come from?
Yeah, no, really, that is so interesting, because I think, like I said, I was living for other people. I wasn't even living for myself anymore, because and a little bit backtracking here, but I was bullied in high school. Mm-hmm. and I moved high school as my senior year. And so I thought, okay, if I looked a certain way, people would like me, people would accept me. So it was a lot of just deep-rooted things going on, but the main part of it all is I really was living for other people and the outside and not my authentic self.
Yeah. You haven't danced in a while, but you kind of got back into it a few months ago, just stretching. Did you actually go on stage, or did you take classes, or just yourself?
Yeah, pretty much just myself, and making sure this was good to go back into. I knew that it was always my passion, and I was hoping that I could go back into it in a healthy way, so I went very slowly. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous about the shoot because I haven't done that much, like leaps and all that.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting thing that I have that problem a lot. I'm known as a dance photographer. Not everybody, a lot of people know me. And they get very nervous when they have a shoot with me because they think they're not good enough, right? Because I shoot with a lot of people and I always post the best because that's what does well on social media. And it's a struggle for me to tell you guys as dancers, like, it doesn't matter where you are, at what level. I'm making you look good. That's always, my thing. And I don't know, I think we were laughing more than taking pictures.
We were.
It was funny, it was great. It was just, we had the perfect environment, like the perfect location, and I felt like you were just so much more relaxed, right? Because you didn't have to like look a certain way or do this or perform, and I didn't expect that either, Actually, I was surprised how much he could do, but after telling me like, hey, I haven't danced in 4 years, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, something I wanted to touch on too is perfectionism is a big part of my history, and I know in a lot of dancers it's a big struggle. So I've really had to set that aside and, like I said, just really accept myself for who I am. Mm-hmm. So I think going into the shoot, I had to remind myself I'm not going back to those old ways of wanting to be perfect, but I'm going to go with an open mind, do what I can. Your message back meant so much to me, just accepting me for who I am, so that made it a lot easier to go into the shoot.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that's what I do. I don't care where you are as a dancer, where you are on what level. Yeah. I just work with you and make you look good, and that's really my job. And the thing is, like, at the end of a shoot, you're happy with your photos because you look good, right? And that's all that matters, right? It's not how many likes does a photo get and all of that stuff, right? I mean, in a way it does, but it doesn't define you.
Exactly. I love that. And it is really helpful because I was telling myself that, but to hear it from somebody else meant a lot to me. And I think just having people that surround you that are in the same boat, not focus so much on the likes and having that be the defining factor, that's huge.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's always easy to say, like, a rich person says, well, money doesn't mean anything to me. Well, yeah, you have a ton of it, Same when I say, like, likes don't really mean that much. Well, I have a lot of followers. But really, I'm at the point where I don't care, right? I just want to have fun, right? It's my job. I want to have fun. And I think that was the difference between the first photo shoot and the second. The first one was all about perfection. Yes. And I was stressed out too because, like, oh my God, she looks amazing. I got to make the best photos out of that, I can't mess this up because that's on me, right? So, yeah. And this time it was just having fun.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that freedom.
Yeah.
I felt so much more free because I remember even before our shoot, I was working out for hours before. I felt like I just had to be absolutely perfect. And like I said, I felt empty inside, where this time I was like, okay, I haven't danced in a while.
Let's see what happens.
But we're going to be spontaneous and enjoy it. And we had the best time.
Yes.
That was so much fun.
It worked really out really well. And I think the photos turned out really well. I'm very happy with them. You said before, I asked you before, like, you see people that you think are in the same spot, like in the same spiral, in the same path that you were. How do you? It's always difficult to reach out to people, and I think part of why we're doing this video is just so that people can see this and then hopefully just like you see it on themselves. So what are some things that people like, maybe like red flags on themselves, if I want to call it that way? What do you think is things that people can look out for?
I think one of the big things is perfectionism, like I mentioned, and people pleasing. Those two were root concepts of my eating disorder. And just noticing that if you do struggle with either of those things, to notice that and to just be very conscious of if you feel that you're losing weight on purpose or you're getting into unhealthy habits, to get help immediately. I unfortunately had waited a really long time to get help, and I'm grateful that now I am healthy and I'm able to help, but just it would be really great to get that early.
So you would say perfectionism, if you're never happy with yourself, that's a red flag. People pleasing, you always try to make someone else happy.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would say would be finding your identity fully in what you look like, which is really tricky with social media. And by that I mean just focusing so much on the external, and how I mentioned before, living for other people and wanting to put out this like perfect picture, and just being aware of that as well, and knowing that no matter what happens to your body, no matter what circumstance in your life, your identity is who you are. It doesn't matter what you do and what you accomplish. You always are with yourself, and that's most important.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. It's when you fall in love with someone, it doesn't matter how they look at all.
Well, even I can relate to that in dance, because as I was losing so much weight, and I wasn't, like I said, I lost a lot of my stamina, my strength. I couldn't jump anymore. I couldn't do my aerial. I was like, it almost felt like a chore to dance because it was so hard for me. And I kept doing it, but I was really losing the joy. And so I really had to work on my perfectionism to go back into dancing again.
Where it's not about the external visuals, but about just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anything, if it becomes a career of dance, that's great. If not, and I do it for fun, that's also great. I'm just going to go with the flow and allow life to work things out.
So going back to like people that might be in the same position that you were before, is there a way they can reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. My Instagram is probably the best way. My email is also on my Instagram, so if anyone wants to reach out, email. But my Instagram is Lindsey, Lindsey, and then Wawrzyniak, Wawrzy.
Going to put it somewhere.
Do you want to just put it down?
Description below, up here. I don't know where it is in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be really long, okay. So maybe just having that. But yeah,
okay.
Reaching out, my Instagram or email is perfectly fine. I'm also speaking now at different dance studios along with different colleges and schools, so I'm more than happy to speak and be an advocate.
That's great. Because I think people that are in that position that you were, they might see there is something wrong, but they don't really want to admit it, and especially admitting it to their peers and their friends is a big step, right? So if they can reach out, sometimes it's easier to reach out to a stranger, but like someone that isn't judging you because they don't have a connection to you, right? It might be easier.
Yeah.
So I think that's great that you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy, and like you said, it's really difficult for people to see on the outside. A lot of times, even in my situation, I was severely underweight, but sometimes there are people that aren't underweight and really struggle with body image and eating disorders and food and all of that. So even in that situation, I'm more than happy to help.
One other question is, it's something that bothers me. When people are very skinny, I get a lot of bad comments on these photos. It's funny that when they're overweight, when I have a bigger dances, there's almost never a comment. But when they're underweight, that seems to be not accepted, but that seems to be okay for some people to comment negatively. But my point is more this. So coming from the outside, when you're in that struggle, right? I think you're defending yourself more. You're kind of burying, like, so if someone from the outside would have told you, hey, you look sick, what would you have said? You would have said, just go away, you don't know me, right?
People said that a lot to me, actually, my senior year of high school. They would tell me that I looked sick. People would yell stuff in the hallway. It was pretty rough. And like I said, I didn't really notice how skinny I got. So I think when people would say that and I didn't know I had a problem going on, I just kind of ignored it, and I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. And there definitely could have been better ways to approach me and to say, like, there may be a problem. But once I realized that something was going on, I did start to see, and now being where I am today.
I think it's a really important point because you have to come, like, you came to that conclusion yourself, right? That was an internal decision or realization that made you, okay, I'm not okay, I need help, right? But someone from the outside, that is just perceived hostile, right? So that doesn't help. So the reason I mention it is I don't want people to see this video and then go on social media and call people out. That doesn't help them, right?
No, definitely not. It really is an internal, it's internal. For me, like I said, I wouldn't get help until I hit that rock bottom, unfortunately. And just realizing that I didn't want to live that way anymore. I was losing my memory. So many things were happening that I just knew I wanted to change. So I think that change comes from inside.
Yeah. What advice would you give dancers, number one, in general, and number two, those that maybe are on the spectrum of having an issue? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think in general, I would say to not compare your journey to anybody else's. We're all on our own dance journey, personal journey, which is so important to remember. And any setback or challenge that we go through, it allows us to grow, and we still learn so much, because I did have quite a bit of regret after I stopped dancing and trying to go back into it. It was pretty frustrating at first because I couldn't do a lot of the things I used to. So not comparing to other people or our past self is going to be huge. And then I also think for someone that may be on the spectrum of struggling or just struggling in general with those risk factors, I would say be true to yourself and know who you are as a person and not by what you look like.
I get every aspect of dancer, I get the whole spectrum, from the super skinny, the super young, to bigger and older and whatever, any style. So funny thing is, sometimes people ask me, what do you do if a dancer can't do a lot? And I think that question is almost rude. Like it doesn't matter to me how much they can do, right? It doesn't really matter to me whether they're skinny or big or whatever. They're just having fun. Like you say, it's your journey, it's your passion, you just do it. And I capture it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think just knowing that it's a passion, you're sharing what you love with the world, and that's so important. And I think the more people that follow their dreams and continue to move forward and take the next best step toward where they want to go, that just inspires other people. So I think having that variety of dancers is amazing, because you see that it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Absolutely not. And I actually like that quote. I like it, I don't like it, but what it really tells a good message is, dance like nobody's watching. That's exactly what you should do. It's like, you do it for yourself. Yeah, you want to be in front of an audience and give your best, but you're actually dancing, doesn't care what they think about me. So there's nobody around, and you just have fun.
I always dance like no one's watching my room.
That's the only way I dance. Nobody has ever seen me dance. Sometimes I have dancers that are very skinny, but they're healthy. It's just they're going through a phase in their life, usually when they're younger, right? Like when they're like 10, 11 or something. And it's just like they have a growth spurt, but they're just, like they grow this way, but not this way. That comes later, right? And then I get comments that are negative. And I think it's important to kind of distinguish between people that are just going through that phase and they're healthy. They eat a lot. They're just skinny, right?
That's so important to cover. I definitely want to touch on that.
Yeah.
I was pretty thin growing up as well, just naturally. And in no means, does thin mean unhealthy at all. It's definitely just having different body types, and that's just how everyone's made differently. I think it's more about the mindset around it. So for me, when I was unhealthy, I was always thinking about ways to lose weight, ways to be thinner. But when I was younger and I was thinner, I was just living freely. So I think to remember that it's a mental struggle rather than only physical.
Yeah, it's not the body, it's in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
one of the most important things to get across.
Do you think that people or dancers specifically that grow up being skinny, that's just their body type, do you think that when people comment and compliment on their body type, do you think that can lead, not necessarily always, but can lead to them like, oh, now I need to make sure that this stays?
Yeah,
Is that what happened
it's a little tough, yeah, because I did get praised a lot. Everyone always told me I had a dancer's body. I think it really depends on not only like external people saying things, but also how you're internalizing it. So with me always struggling with perfectionism, I was like, okay, like I have to keep this. And even the pleasing other people, I was like, oh, I want them to like me, I want them to accept me, so I'm gonna keep this thin body. So I think it really depends on a couple of factors, yeah.
Yeah, so it is always a two-way thing. It is like what comes from the outside, the external factor, but there is just as much the internal thing.
Yeah.
If you're healthy and stable inside, you can deal with the bullying or whatever, comments like that. But if you're not, then it might push you over the edge and get into that spiral. Yeah.
And that's important too, because I think now that I learned the tools of how to deal with those comments, because I still will get comments either positive or negative, and now I know how to deal with those in a healthier way and to know of my story, what I went through, and I'm just going to keep being who I am, keep going with my values and focusing on my recovery, my journey.
So how did you learn to deal with comments, as you say, both negative and positive, because both can be, to use that word, toxic,
Yeah, I know I mentioned this a lot. I really think it is rooted in identity. Once I was able to separate in my head, like me as this dancer that accomplishes these things and has the thin body, to me is just who I am, being a good person, being nice to other people, inspiring others. I think when those comments are hard, it's definitely easier said than done when it happens, but that is a tool that I use a lot, is going back to who I am.
So basically you separate, okay, what they see, what they comment on is just the external thing. That's all they have to, because they don't know you. But there is a separate, that's you, right?
Yeah.
And that they're not touching that. They're not, yeah. That's a good way to look at it. I like
And
that.
also, it's like almost like a lack of control, because we can't control what other people say or think or do, but we can control how we react to it. And so when I was able to recognize that and just accept it for how it is, that people are going to do and say things, but what's most important is how I take care of myself.
That is very good. That is very good. We always have the choice the way we react to things, right? Yeah, when I deal with negative comments, which I deal a lot with a big social media accounts, is that it's easier for me because they're not commenting on me, right? But what I also noticed is most of these comments is people trying to get attention. They want to write something in a comment section that gets attention, and I think that's one of the worst things that social media, there's so many things that are bad, but that's one of the worst things on social media, is that you can like a comment, and that's what they're going for. They want to say something that gets a lot of likes. It's just getting attention. It has nothing to do with that dancer. They're just looking for something. You can always find something to comment on.
Like I mentioned, when I was bullied, I felt like people were just picking at every flaw that I had. And it was just to the point where I was like, they're literally picking at everything. And I had a really difficult time with that, I think, on social media too. And all you do is type it out and you sit behind a phone or a computer or whatever. It makes it that much easier to put out.
We've been talking about doing this video interview thing for a while, and finally we're gonna make it happen. And I'm so glad we finally got it, and we got the photo shoot, because it really completes the story, and it makes me so happy to see you happy, like healthy and happy, and just like content with yourself. And that was really the. It just makes me happy. It was a good way to come to to peace with this story.
Thank you. I think what you said, it completes a story, and we've been wanting to do it for a long time. I think the timing was perfect. It was exactly 4 years later, and I'm just so grateful for people like you who have supported me through this journey, and everybody else. And if I can be a support to anybody, I'm more than happy. So I'm very grateful that we could do this and to share my story.
Yes, and I hope that we can reach a few people, even if it's just a few. And don't reach out to me. Reach out to her. Reach out to you. She knows every step of the journey.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yep. Thanks for having me. That is video.
Okay, which button is the...
We'll figure it out.